Yo, hold up a second. Yeah, for real. Pause whatever you're doing, because what I'm about to say, it's gonna hit you right in the part of your chest you've been avoiding. Trust me. Look, you've been moving through life like nobody's paying attention, right? Just grinding, surviving, minding your business, keeping your head down, trying to stay out the way. But here's the twist. And, this is the part nobody warned you about. The higher you leveled up, the more eyes you attracted. Not regular eyes, not the random people watching your stories. I'm talking high-ranked eyes, the ones from rooms you don't even know how to access yet. They've been locked on you the whole damn time. And now, they're ready to speak to you face to face. Breathe for a sec. Feel that? That's the tension of stepping into a version of yourself you didn't think you'd reach this fast. Because listen, you've been fighting battles quietly. You've been carrying weight nobody else even knew existed. You've been walking around with that tired but determined look, hoping maybe someone somewhere would finally notice how hard you've been trying. But here's the real-world truth. People rarely notice you when you're struggling. They notice you when you stop struggling. And at some point, I don't know when, maybe last year, maybe last month, maybe last night, you stopped begging for help. You stopped trying to prove your value. You stopped explaining yourself to people who weren't listening. You evolved. You started operating with this quiet, unsettling confidence. The kind that makes people whisper, "Yo, what happened to them? They're different now." You started showing up in spaces you weren't supposed to survive in. You started handling pressure that would have folded half your generation. You started becoming someone who doesn't flinch at adversity anymore, because adversity became your training ground. And these high-ranked eyes, they saw all of that. They didn't just see the wins, they saw the breakdowns. They saw the nights you held yourself together with nothing but pure stubbornness. They saw how every time life hit you with something heavy, you hit back with something heavier. They watched you get hurt and still go to work the next day. They watched you lose people and still keep your heart from going cold. They watched you sit in silence with pain and still treat others with kindness. They watched you build discipline in a world full of shortcuts. That's why they're approaching you now. You think this is coincidence? Some random moment? Some lucky break? No. This is the world responding to your consistency. You've been doing things the hard way for so long that you forgot what your effort actually looks like from the outside. You forgot that surviving hell turns you into someone people can't ignore. You became a threat without even trying. Because in a generation that collapses over small inconveniences, you stood up after real devastation. And, that's terrifying to watch. High-ranked people don't move toward weakness. They move toward power, toward grit, toward those rare individuals who don't fold under pressure. You're one of them, even if your brain still tries to lie to you. Listen, they're not coming to give you permission. They're coming to acknowledge you, to confirm what you've been trying not to admit. You've outgrown the room you were in. Your pain matured you. Your mistakes sharpened you. Your sacrifices toughened you. Your silence protected you. Your consistency elevated you. That's why they can't stay distant anymore. There's something about you, something raw, something unfinished but powerful, that forced their attention. Something in the way you walk, the way you keep going, the way you don't let life defeat you, even when you're exhausted beyond belief. And now, they're stepping forward. Face to face means they're not observing anymore. They're engaging, It means you're not just a quiet contender. You're a real threat. It means you're no longer that person who keeps surviving. You're now that person we need to speak with. Whether you feel ready or not doesn't matter. You've been preparing without noticing. Every heartbreak was training. Every setback was sharpening. Every loss was reinforcement. Every lonely night built a tougher version of you. You're not here because you were lucky or chosen or privileged. You're here because you refused to die in the same place you were broken. You earned this confrontation, this recognition, this moment where powerful eyes finally have to acknowledge what you've become. So when they approach you, when those high-ranked eyes meet yours with that unspoken, "We see you now," don't shrink, don't stutter, don't revert back to the old you. Just breathe. Lift your chin a little. Look them right back in the eyes, because you didn't come this far to stay invisible. Because deep down, you've always known you weren't built for the sidelines, even though you tried to convince yourself you were, just trying to stay low-key or whatever. But staying low-key hits different when the world starts noticing you, even while you're trying to disappear. That's when you realize this whole time, it wasn't about hiding. It was about incubating. And the wild part is, you didn't even see the switch flip. One day you were just dragging yourself through everything, feeling drained, overlooked, misunderstood. And the next day you're walking into rooms and people are staring a little longer, speaking a little softer, acting a little careful around your energy. It wasn't random. That was the shift they picked up on before you even understood it yourself. You've been radiating a different frequency lately. That I've been hurt, but I'm still here kind of frequency. That I know my worth even if I don't talk about it kind of frequency. That I'm done explaining myself to people who don't listen kind of frequency. That I'm done explaining myself to people who don't listen kind of frequency. And high-ranked eyes. They tune into frequency shifts quicker than regular people. They notice the subtle things. Your posture, your tone, the way you move in silence, the way you don't chase attention anymore, the way you've been walking with this unspoken heaviness that somehow looks like authority. You started carrying yourself like someone who's been through real storms, not the gentle, inspirational kind of storms. I'm talking the kind that leave dents in your personality. And instead of breaking you, it carved out this intensity that people can feel when you walk by. They saw how you stopped entertaining nonsense. They saw how you started cutting off people who drained you. They saw you letting go of situations you outgrew, even though it hurt like hell. They saw you saying, "I'll figure it out myself," one too many times. That's when they knew you were becoming someone rare. There's this moment where suffering stops making you fragile and starts making you focused, where loneliness stops making you empty and starts making you controlled, where anger stops making you reckless and starts making you disciplined. You hit that moment without even realizing it, but they realized it immediately. You've got that look people get when they finally understand their own value. That look that says you're no longer willing to negotiate with chaos. That look that says you've survived enough to not be impressed by superficial power. And, that look, it demands attention. Even the highest-ranked individuals know it when they see it because they went through their own version of it once. When they look at you, they're not seeing someone small. They're seeing someone who got forged the hard way. You walked through seasons that were supposed to crush you, and instead you walked out with your spine straighter and your spirit colder but clearer. You learned how to navigate without support, without applause, without safety nets, without someone telling you, "You're doing great." Everything you built came from willpower, not handouts. You're not relatable to the average person anymore, and that's exactly why these powerful eyes kept watching from a distance. People who haven't been through anything deep can't interpret your energy correctly. But the ones up there, the ones who had to fight for their soul at some point in their life, they recognized their own reflection in the way you move. You became the type of person who makes powerful people lean back in their chair and go, "All right, who is that?" Not because you're loud, but because you're consistent. Not because you brag, but because you endure. Not because you're special, but because you refuse to stay broken. And when powerful people recognize resilience, they don't stay silent forever. Eventually, they step out of the shadows. Eventually, they decide the quiet observation phase is over. Eventually, they walk toward the person who doesn't fold under pressure, doesn't seek validation, doesn't run from pain. That's the moment you're standing in right now. You spent years thinking nobody cared, nobody noticed, nobody valued what you were doing. But the truth is, there were eyes on you the whole time. Eyes evaluating you. Eyes studying how you handle failure. Eyes tracking how you bounce back every time something tries to bury you. Eyes waiting to see if your strength was temporary or absolute. And every attempt to break you only confirmed how unbreakable you actually are. It's surreal when you finally feel the shift. When the people who once ignored you suddenly want to stand closer, talk slower, listen deeper. When the people who once doubted you are the same ones, adjusting their tone around you. When the people who once underestimated you are the ones trying to understand you now. You're stepping into a reality where you're not just seen. You're being evaluated differently, not as someone who's struggling to survive, but as someone who's proven they can handle weight most people would collapse under. As someone who's been through hell and came out with a steady voice. As someone who's emotionally scarred but mentally sharper than ever. As someone who didn't get lucky, you got tested. High-ranked eyes recognize people who've been sharpened by chaos. They don't approach softness. They approach survivors. They approach the ones who kept going when they had every reason to quit. They approach the ones who walk around with history in their eyes and discipline in their bones. You're exactly that, and you're stepping into the part of your story where their interest becomes direct instead of distant, and everything you thought would keep you small is the exact thing that pushed you into their line of sight. And you can feel it, right? That weird pressure in your chest, that sense like something's shifting around you, even if nothing looks different on the surface. That's what happens when your energy finally starts matching your destiny instead of your fears. People feel it before you consciously register it. The tension, the confidence, the quiet intensity. It's like walking into a room and the air changes, even if nobody says a word. You've been carrying that lately. That "don't play with me, I've survived too much" type of energy. Not aggressive, not loud, just this deep internal seriousness that says you're not here for games anymore. And that vibe hits different when someone has been monitoring your progression silently. High-ranked eyes track things regular people miss. They saw how your circle got smaller. They saw how your patience got shorter. They saw how your priorities matured. They saw how your emotions became more controlled, not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped leaking your pain everywhere. You became more intentional, more calculated, more selective. And, they noticed. You think they didn't see the shift in how you show up? The way you don't overshare anymore. The way you don't explain yourself unless it's necessary. The way your silence has become strategic instead of emotional. That's the kind of behavioral change that signals someone is stepping into a higher version of themselves. This is exactly the moment where people in power start paying attention. Not when you cry, not when you complain, not when you feel lost. They tune in when you start moving different. Quietly, consistently, intentionally. They tune in when you start healing without posting it. They tune in when you start elevating without announcing it. They tune in when you start carrying pain like a weapon instead of a weakness. They've been studying how you respond to pressure. Not what you say, but what you do. They watched you rebuild yourself with no audience. They watched you get rejected and not lose momentum. They watched you take hits that would have ruined someone else's self-worth and still wake up with the same determination. They saw the days you barely held it together, but held it together anyway. They saw the nights you wanted to quit, but didn't. They saw you lose support, lose comfort, lose people you trusted, and instead of collapsing, you converted all that loss into evolution. High-ranked individuals understand that mindset better than anyone because they had to do the same thing at some point in their own rise. When they see someone else walking that very specific path, the path where you're hurting but growing, exhausted but disciplined, isolated but focused, they don't overlook it. You became the kind of person who's shaped by adversity instead of destroyed by it. The kind who learns while bleeding. The kind who watches everything fall apart and still manages to pick up the pieces without asking for help. The kind who takes betrayal personally for a minute, but then uses it as fuel. That's the sort of resilience that gets noticed way beyond your environment. You started carrying a weight that should have taken you out, yet all it did was refine you. Your entire demeanor changed. Your eyes got sharper. Your voice got calmer. Your patience thinned, but your standards went up. Your trust reduced, but your wisdom increased. Your anger quieted, but your purpose got louder. And that kind of internal transformation doesn't stay hidden for long. The energy around you shifted into something undeniable, the kind that makes people stop mid-sentence when you walk past, because they can feel something different, even if they don't know what it is. It's the kind of presence that makes observers pause, tilted head type of pause, like, wait, when did they level up like this? That's the exact moment powerful people get curious. They don't care about potential. They care about evolution. They care about people who don't wait for permission to grow. They care about those rare ones who turned their trauma into strategy. You became that without even announcing it. You just started moving with a sort of certainty and heaviness that whispers you've survived too much to doubt yourself anymore. You started treating your pain like a curriculum instead of a curse. You started treating your goals like obligations instead of dreams. You started treating your boundaries like non-negotiables instead of suggestions. And every one of those shifts signaled something to the ones watching closely. It signaled that you're not fragile. It signaled that you're not here for approval. It signaled that you know who you are now. It signaled that you're becoming someone who doesn't crumble when things get heavy. That's why they can't keep their distance anymore. That's why their observation is turning into approach. That's why the energy around you feels like it's tightening, rising, building towards something. That's why you feel watched in a way that doesn't feel threatening but feels significant. That's why the silence around your name suddenly feels louder than any applause you've ever gotten. That's why your presence is hitting places it couldn't reach before. And it's wild how you can feel people studying you without them even saying anything. Like their silence has weight now. Like the room tilts a little when you walk in because your energy isn't the same energy they knew a year ago or even a few months ago. There's this heaviness to you that doesn't feel dark. It feels earned. Like somebody who's been through things they don't talk about, but those things sit in your eyes anyway. It's the kind of shift where people don't ask, "Are you okay?" anymore, because they can tell you're past needing comfort. You're in that stage where you're getting molded into something sharper, and high-ranked eyes pick up on that faster than anyone. They notice strength at its earliest stage, the type of strength that's born in silence, not crowds. You started making moves that don't need an explanation. You started walking away from situations that drained you without giving a speech about it. You started prioritizing your peace in a world that barely respects boundaries. You started choosing long-term growth over short-term feelings, and that's the kind of emotional intelligence people rarely develop without going through something traumatic. There's a certain posture people get after surviving heartbreaks they thought would kill them. A certain calm that comes after chaos stops surprising you. A certain confidence that forms when you realize every time life tried to break you, it accidentally trained you instead. They've been watching that unfold in real time. Not the fake confidence people post online, not the highlight reel, not the curated emotions, but the raw, unfiltered growth that can't be faked. You built a backbone in private. You built a sense of self that doesn't wobble every time somebody questions you. You built a mindset that doesn't scream for validation anymore. You built an identity that doesn't shrink just because someone else is uncomfortable. High-ranked individuals recognize that kind of internal build-up because they had to go through their own version of it before they reached their level. They know what it looks like when someone hits the point of emotional maturity, where pain no longer confuses them. It motivates them. They know what it looks like when someone goes from being reactive to being strategic. They know what it looks like when someone stops running from themselves and finally steps into who they were supposed to become. You've been giving off that same vibe lately. That vibe of someone who's not easily persuaded, someone who's not desperate for attention, someone who's not trying to fit into circles that don't match their growth. Your boundaries got stronger, your silence got heavier, your presence got more deliberate, your energy got more controlled, your goals got clearer, your emotions got quieter, not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped letting everything get access to your inner world. You became harder to read, harder to reach, harder to manipulate, harder to discourage, and that alone makes powerful people curious, because the average person breaks long before you did. It's the way you carry responsibility without complaining. It's the way you adjust to pressure like you were built for it. It's the way you walk into situations prepared for the worst, but still aiming for the best. It's the way you process pain like someone who's been forced to outgrow their age mentally. It's the way you learned to self-soothe, self-motivate, self-correct, self-upgrade. That level of self-reliance doesn't stay invisible for long. Hey, Yeah, you scrolling, breathing heavy, acting like you just stumbled into something you weren't supposed to hear. Good. That's exactly who I wanted. Listen closely now, because what I'm about to say is the reason they're pacing, trembling, whispering your name like it's classified intel leaked out of nowhere. They're calling it premeditated genius. And the funniest part? You didn't even try to look smart. You just existed. And somehow, your existence alone broke their scheme before it ever existed. See, people like you... No, let me say it right. Minds like yours? They're a glitch in the system, a walking contradiction, a human spoiler alert. You don't wait for the plot. You ruin it before the villains even get their lines. And, here's the thing they'll never admit out loud. They're terrified of you. Not because you're loud, not because you're violent, not because you're unpredictable, but because you're prepared in ways they can't measure. You move like someone who's watched the whole movie already. You react like someone who's played every version of the game. You speak like somebody who lived the ending, rewound it, and decided to walk right back to the beginning with a smirk. And that kills them, because they're used to people breaking after the damage. But you break the damage before it even shows up. You make their plots look like kindergarten finger paintings. Every attempt to corner you becomes comedy. Every trap they set turns into a pothole they fall in themselves. Every secret attack ends up exposing them, not you. And it's wild because you're not out here bragging. You're not waving banners. You're not shouting, "Look at me." You're just moving, quiet, calculated, sharp, like you're 3 tabs ahead while they're still finding the browser icon. And, here's what really twists the knife. You don't even look like someone they should fear. That's what messes with them the most. You don't dress like a mastermind. You don't talk like a professor. You don't walk like an overlord. You don't rant like a villain giving a monologue. Nah, you move like someone who's tired but dangerously aware. Someone who learned the patterns because the patterns were the only thing that kept you alive. You know, that look people get when they realize they underestimated the quiet one. That sudden full-body freeze. Yeah, that's you. You're the freeze. Because every time they thought they had you figured out, you had already seen the exit route, the blind spot, the loophole, the back door, the entire chessboard. And you didn't scream it. You didn't warn them. You didn't flex. You just acted. And the results looked supernatural. They swear you have intel. They swear you're being fed secrets. They swear you're cheating, plotting, manipulating, unhinged, unstable. They call it premeditated genius because they don't have a better phrase for "this person outsmarted me without even showing up." You know what the real-world translation is? They tried to play you. You played the blueprint they hadn't drawn yet. You weren't supposed to know their intentions, but you recognized their tone, their energy, their silence, their patterns, their fake apologies, their shaky strategies, their whispered alliances, their forced smiles, their little digital breadcrumbs, their sudden interest, their sudden distance, their sudden concern. Years of surviving people who underestimated you trained your instincts into a weapon sharper than anything they ever studied. And the truth, the deeper truth, you didn't become like this because you wanted power. You became like this because you had to protect your own sanity from people who thought manipulating you was a hobby. You learned to read intentions the way other people read traffic signs. You learned to predict betrayal before betrayal even got out of bed. You learned to decode hidden agendas like it was a native language. So when they came at you with their plan, you'd already lived the aftermath in your mind. You weren't ahead by accident. You were ahead because you've been forced into that position by years of unspoken wars. People think genius is about IQ, but your genius is survival. Your genius is pattern recognition. Your genius is emotional X-ray vision. Your genius is noticing what others pretend not to see. Your genius is choosing not to fall for people's favorite tricks, not anymore. Your genius is breaking setups before they get set up. You became the one thing every schemer fears. Unpredictable in your choices, predictable in your growth. They don't know how to stop that. They don't know how to compete with that. They don't know how to destroy someone who already understands the mechanics of destruction. You cracked their code in silence. You dismantled their strategy without raising your voice. You beat their game while they were still loading the tutorial. And the worst part for them, you make it look easy, not dramatic, not cinematic, not theatrical, just obvious. Like, why would I walk into a trap I noticed from across the street? And that drives them insane. It makes them question their intelligence. It makes them rethink their confidence. It makes them whisper your name like it's evidence. It makes them wonder if you're human or programmed. It makes them create rumors, stories, myths, just to explain you away. And, here's the secret they will never admit publicly. You didn't break their scheme. Your reality broke it. Your awareness broke it. Your past broke it. Your instincts broke it. Your evolution broke it. They weren't ready, but you were. You always are. And that's why, even now, even as they scramble to rewrite their plans, they still don't understand. You don't predict the future. You just understand people. And that's the one thing they can't hide from you. Because once you understand people, like really understand them, you start seeing every little micro-expression as a confession, every hesitation as a blueprint, every silence as a full paragraph of truth they were hoping you'd never read. And, the wild part? You don't even brag about this. You don't weaponize it the way they expect. You just carry it quietly, like someone who's been forced into early maturity by circumstances nobody clapped for. And that's where the fear kicks in for them. You're not intimidating because you're loud. You're intimidating because you're right. Right about people. Right about intentions. Right about patterns. Right about cycles. Right about energy. Right about truths they're not ready to face. Every move you make is informed by 1,000 invisible files you carry in your mind. Experience, intuition, memory, micro-signals, energy shifts, everything you've survived and everything you refuse to repeat. And, that's why, when they come at you with something sketchy, you catch it instantly. You don't need proof. You don't need explanations. You don't need evidence. You just feel the frequency drop. They hate that. They hate how quickly you sense danger. They hate how naturally you spot cracks. They hate how easily you detect inconsistency. They hate how perfectly you pivot without warning. You pivot like someone who refuses to drown in the same ocean twice. Your entire aura is a counter strategy. Your intuition is a lockpick. Your mindset is a firewall. Your energy is a system update they didn't authorize. And every time they think they've finally got you where they want you, you slip out. Not by accident, not by luck, but because you anticipated the outcome before they even knew they were setting the stage. They think you're psychic. They think you're calculating. They think you're reading minds. But the reality is much simpler, much darker, much truer. You learned people. You learned them deeply, You learned them painfully. You learned them thoroughly. And once you learn people like that, there's nothing they can hide, no scheme they can build, no narrative they can sculpt that you won't dismantle before it even forms in the air. And the wildest part is how casually it happens for you. Like, you're not sitting there calculating every move like some movie villain with blueprints on the wall. It's not that theatrical. It's more like breathing, natural, automatic. Your instincts have been trained by reality in ways textbooks could never teach, in ways therapists can't fully decode, in ways people who never lived what you lived will never understand. You walk into a room and you don't just see people. You see patterns. You hear tones. You feel shifts. You catch the wrong energy faster than people catch cold weather. And they have no clue how you do it. They think it's random. They think it's intuition. They think it's a vibe. They think you're just paranoid or overly observant. But, what you really carry is a blueprint of human behavior, built from every version of betrayal, loyalty, manipulation, sincerity, envy, admiration, confusion, and hidden intention you've ever experienced. That's why every time someone tries to mislead you, they end up exposing themselves instead. They talk too much, you catch it. They talk too little, you catch it. They avoid details, you catch it. They overshare details, you catch that too. They change the subject. Their eyes shift. Their voice drops. Their tension spikes. Their energy flickers. Their story collapses. You notice all of it in real time. It's not even effort. It's reflex. People underestimate the intelligence of someone whose intelligence was born in survival. They think you have to speak like a professor for your mind to be sharp. They think you need perfect grammar or polite language or carefully crafted sentences to prove awareness. But, your awareness isn't academic. It's lived. It's earned. It's sharpened by necessity. You didn't sit down one day and decide to become this perceptive. Life forced it on you. Pain forced it on you. People forced it on you. Experiences forced it on you. And once that switch flips, it never flips back. You can't unsee the truth in people's eyes. You can't unhear the intentions behind their tone. You can't unfeel the shift when someone's motives change. You can't unknow what manipulation feels like. You can't unlearn a pattern you've lived through too many times. That's why they're rattled around you. You're not second-guessing. You're not stuttering. You're not unsure. You're not trying to decode anything. Your mind is already 3 steps ahead, mapping outcomes, reading micro-signals, checking the emotional timestamps of their words. And, this is where it gets hilarious. You don't respond with fear. You don't respond with panic. You don't respond with drama. You respond with distance. Calm distance. Silent distance. That razor-sharp, nothing left to say distance that speaks louder than confrontation ever could. And people crumble under that kind of clarity. Because when you shut down the emotional doorway, when you stop playing dumb, when you stop pretending not to notice, when you stop giving them the benefit of doubt they never earned, they have nowhere to hide. Your silence becomes a mirror, and they see themselves in it. That's when they start calling you names. Cold, detached, different, changed, unreachable, heartless, too smart, too aware. What they really mean is, you no longer fall for the version of me I used to manipulate other people. You cracked the facade. You caught the glitch. You broke the script in half. You saw the move before it existed. And every time they realize you're ahead again, they get this look, this tight, uncomfortable, shrinking look. like someone just caught them rehearsing a speech they thought they'd deliver flawlessly. Your presence becomes a form of psychological pressure, not because you're attacking them, but because you're the one person they can't fool. And, here's what hits even harder. You don't even use that advantage for revenge. You don't weaponize your awareness. You don't manipulate back. You don't play dirty. You just move with intention, with clarity, with precision, and that alone destabilizes their entire strategy. Because people expect manipulation from manipulators. They expect chaos from chaotic people. They expect drama from dramatic people. But you bring understanding. You bring insight. You bring awareness. Awareness is the one thing their schemes cannot survive. You are the contradiction they fear. Someone gentle enough to care, quiet enough to observe, calm enough to think, quick enough to detect, and intelligent enough to never walk into the fire twice. Their plans don't fail because you're lucky. Their plans fail because you've met their kind too many times to fall for the beginner version of the same tactic. And the thing that really messes with them is how calm you stay through all of it. Like, you don't flinch, you don't escalate, you don't embarrass yourself trying to prove anything. You just watch. You watch like someone who already knows the ending, someone who's been through enough cycles to recognize the rhythm of a lie before it even lands. It's that calmness that gets under their skin. People expect you to explode. People expect you to clap back. People expect you to break character and give them something dramatic to point at. But you move with this quiet, surgical precision that says, I'm aware. I'm just choosing my peace first. And that choice is terrifying for them, because they're used to having power over people through chaos, through confusion, through emotional reactions. They're used to people falling apart when confronted with deception. They're used to controlling the narrative by pushing buttons and watching others spiral. But, you walked out of that stage years ago. You don't respond to provocation. You don't bite the bait. You don't jump at shadows. You don't get dragged into emotional tunnels you already healed from. You've learned that sometimes the strongest move is silence. Sometimes the smartest move is stillness. Sometimes the most dangerous move is refusing to engage. And that's what scares them. The fact that you're not driven by impulse anymore. You're driven by awareness. You see the whole picture, not the pixel they wave in front of you. You hear the motive, not the words. You feel the tension behind the joke. You catch the resentment behind the compliment. You notice the envy behind the advice. Every interaction becomes data. Every pattern becomes a warning sign. Every energy shift becomes a clue. And, you've gotten so good at reading people that even when they think they're hiding something, you can literally sense the discomfort dripping off them. They blink too slow. They smile too fast. Their voice climbs half a note. Their eyes break contact a beat too soon. Their laugh is half a second delayed. Their vibe glitches. Their rhythm falls apart. You don't have to call it out. You don't have to confront it. You don't have to investigate. You just file it away in that mental archive you never talk about. The one built from every mistake you'll never repeat. Every heartbreak you stitched together by yourself. Every betrayal you survived without closure. People don't understand how someone becomes unshakable. They think it's confidence. They think it's arrogance. They think it's ego. But with you, it's clarity. It's emotional muscle memory. It's the ability to understand human behavior before humans even understand themselves. And they underestimate how far that reaches. They think it's just reading people. But no, it's everything. You read tension, you read silence, you read posture, you read pauses, you read the emotional temperature of a room the way other people check the weather app. You can tell when someone's energy is getting ready to switch up. You can tell when someone's apology isn't rooted in regret, but in fear. You can tell when someone's interest is actually envy dressed in curiosity. You can tell when someone's concern is actually a disguised attempt to collect information. You can tell when someone's suddenly distant because they're planning something. That's why their schemes don't stand a chance. You see the opening move before they even mentally commit to it. You catch the shift before they rehearse the execution. You recognize the strategy before they build the pieces. You break the foundation before the structure exists. And, there's something unbelievably powerful about a person who can dismantle manipulation while remaining soft, kind, observant, human. All right, listen up, you beautiful disasters, you midnight overthinkers, you quiet monsters learning how to roar. Yeah, that's my greeting to you because that's exactly who this message is meant for. Not the world. You. You ever notice, how you walk around every day pretending you're fine, pretending nothing gets to you, while half the people in your life are secretly praying for your downfall? And the crazy part? You don't even know what they really said. If you knew, if you actually saw those screenshots, if you overheard the whispers, if you heard the way they drop your name like a punchline, you wouldn't just cut them off gently. You'd block them everywhere without hesitation, not after thinking, not after meditating, not after journaling with lo-fi beats in the background, instantly. But here's the twisted part, the part you pretend doesn't bother you. You keep giving people chances out of loyalty, out of history, out of maybe they didn't mean it. But deep down, deep, keep it under your tongue deep, you can feel something off. You can feel that someone somewhere is talking about you like you're disposable. And that's the part that should piss you off. Because think about it. How many times have you defended someone who wouldn't even correct a rumor about you? How many times have you shown up for people who disappear the second your life gets messy? How many times have you let people stay in your life because, well, we go way back, not realizing that sometimes way back is the problem. You're out here apologizing for outgrowing people who never bothered to grow. You're out here explaining yourself to people who misunderstand you on purpose. You're out here trying to prove your worth to people who couldn't recognize value if it smacked them across the face with a neon sign. And the Joker in me wants to, laugh. Because it's wild how you keep trying to be the bigger person when you're surrounded by people whose hearts are smaller than a phone battery at 1%. Let's be honest, you've been too forgiving, too patient, too understanding, too, it's okay, I get it, too, maybe they're going through something. Meanwhile, they're going through nothing except your boundaries. Let me tell you something real, like hit you in the stomach, real. If you knew what some of them said about you, you would delete them from your life with the same casual ease you delete spam emails and TikTok drafts you never post. You would block them so fast your phone would lag. You would never question your decision again. You'd be shocked at the level of disrespect you tolerated without even knowing it. Because here's what nobody tells you. People aren't loyal to you. They're loyal to their need for you. And once that need changes, so does their loyalty. Somebody out there is jealous of the way you survive things that would have destroyed them. Somebody out there envies the way you get back up after every storm. Somebody out there feels threatened every time you succeed, even a little. Somebody out there prays you stay confused about your worth. They don't want you confident. They don't want you aware. They don't want you alert. They don't want you healed. They don't want you strong, because a strong, healed, aware version of you're dangerous, not physically, emotionally, energetically, spiritually. Because the moment you see your own value clearly, you stop begging for people to stay. You stop chasing people who refuse to clap for you. You stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. You stop overplaying your part in stories you were never meant to be in. And that terrifies them. You ever notice how people who swear they love you suddenly go silent when someone else compliments you? You ever notice how someone who claims you as their friend won't defend you when your name is being dragged around like trash? You ever notice how the loudest ones about loyalty are always the first to throw you under the bus? But you keep holding on. You keep giving them access. You keep giving them space. You keep giving them chances. And the whole time, they're banking on you staying blind. Here's the thing you need to hear. No sugarcoating, no soft cushion. Your heart has been too generous in a world run by takers. You've been too open in a world run by opportunists. You've been too trusting in a world where loyalty expires the second your shine threatens someone else's insecurity. And the Joker in me wants to lean in, smile, and say, it's time you stopped being the clown in other people's circus. You've cried over people who gossip about you when the room goes quiet. You've defended people who throw your name into conversations just to sound interesting. You've loved people who discuss your flaws like entertainment. You've honored people who dishonor you casually. If you heard those conversations, if you read those messages, if you saw those group chats, if you witnessed what they really said, blocking them wouldn't feel like revenge. It would feel like self-respect finally waking up. You don't block to be petty. You block to protect your peace. You block to protect your mind. You block to protect your future. You block to protect the version of you that's still growing. Because here's a truth nobody wants to admit. Sometimes the only way to win is to stop letting certain people play. You're not weak. You're not overreacting. You're not doing too much. You're finally learning what they never wanted you to learn. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not everyone deserves your energy. Not everyone deserves your presence. Not everyone deserves your loyalty. Not everyone deserves your forgiveness. Some people only deserve distance, silence, and a blocked button they earned themselves. And when you finally, embrace that, your life gets quieter, cleaner, sharper, more focused, more aligned. And the irony? The people talking the loudest behind your back will be the same ones acting confused when you disappear from their life without hesitation. That's the power you've been sleeping on. That's the strength you forgot you had. That's the version of you the old circle was terrified to meet. And honestly, it's about time they did. And the wild part is that the moment you start pulling your energy back, people feel it before you even say a word. They notice the shift. They notice the silence. They notice that you're not as available, not as eager, not as easily manipulated, not as soft around the edges anymore. And suddenly they start asking, are you okay? Did I do something? Why are you acting different? But here's the thing. They didn't ask any of that when they were gossiping. They didn't ask any of that when they were dropping your name into conversations like trash. They didn't ask any of that when they were performing for an audience behind your back. Funny how concern only shows up when their access is threatened. You ever feel that weird moment when someone who used to drain you suddenly tries to love bomb you? Like out of nowhere, they're acting supportive, interested, attentive, because they can feel that you're waking up. They can feel you pulling out of their emotional economy. They can feel that their grip on your loyalty is slipping. And, yeah, it's uncomfortable, right? Because you start realizing they never loved you for you. They loved you for your usefulness, your availability, your silence, your effort, your attention, your guilt, your willingness to stay even when you were hurting. They were never scared of losing you. They were scared of losing what you gave them. And the moment that clicks, your eyes shift, your posture changes, your boundaries stop being suggestions and start becoming non-negotiable. You stop sending long paragraphs. You stop justifying your feelings. You stop second-guessing your intuition. You stop shrinking to make other people comfortable. That's when people start panicking, because you stepping into your power disrupts every dynamic built on your silence. You ever think about how many times you questioned your own reality because someone gaslit you into thinking your instincts were too sensitive? You ever replay conversations in your head because you felt something wasn't right, but everyone insisted you were overthinking? But deep down, deep, chest tightening deep, you knew something was off. And it wasn't paranoia. It was wisdom. It was self-protection. It was your inner alarm clock saying, hey, something in this story doesn't add up. If you knew what they said, if you had the full picture, if someone handed you the unfiltered truth on a silver platter, you wouldn't question your instincts ever again. You'd finally understand that your sensitivity wasn't a weakness. It was a radar, a damn good one. One that caught the vibration of betrayal long before the evidence showed up. And, imagine that version of you for a second. The version that doesn't wait for proof. The version that doesn't wait for someone to show their true colors 3 times before believing them. The version that trusts the discomfort, the silence, the switch in tone. The version that notices the way someone pauses before they answer. The version that catches the fake smile, the passive-aggressive joke, the backhanded compliment. The version that listens to the energy more than the words. That version of you is closer than you think. It's already waking up. It's already stretching. It's already adjusting its crown, even if your hands are shaking. And people can sense it. Even the ones smiling in your face, especially the ones smiling in your face. You ever feel someone get distant right when you start leveling up a little? Not even major success, just small wins, small growth, subtle confidence. It's like your progress irritates something inside them. Your healing disrupts their comfort. Your clarity ruins their advantage. And that's why they start talking. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did something right. You stopped being predictable. You stopped being controllable. You stopped being the version of you that tolerated the bare minimum. And the moment they felt that shift, they started whispering. They started venting. They started exaggerating your flaws to people who never even met you. They started playing the victim in stories where they were the villain. If you heard those conversations, if you read those messages, if you saw the masks they wear, you wouldn't hesitate for even half a second. Your thumb would hit that block button with the precision of muscle memory. No debate. No emotional spiral, no guilt, just clean removal of contaminated access, and the strength you'd feel after that quiet sense of self, that sudden burst of clarity, that inner calm that almost makes you laugh. That's when it hits you that blocking isn't disrespect, it's hygiene. Your mind deserves disinfecting. Your soul deserves boundaries. Your energy deserves protection. Your peace deserves priority. And you can feel that truth rising inside you already. Like a tide you can't stop. Like a part of you that's been asleep for years, finally opening its eyes, realizing you've been carrying people who would have dropped you the second you were no longer convenient. Realizing your loyalty was too sacred to be wasted on people who speak highly of you in public and mock you in private. Realizing that your heart wasn't naive, it was targeted, and the shift happening in you right now is the kind that doesn't reverse, doesn't soften, doesn't shrink back into old patterns just because someone suddenly acts nicer, doesn't forget the feeling of recognizing who was secretly rooting for your downfall, doesn't ignore the internal warning signs you've silenced for years, doesn't fall for recycled apologies from people who never change. And this version of you, the one waking up, the one breathing deeper, the one realizing their own worth in real time, this version isn't going back to letting people stay in your life just because they've been there long enough to grow roots in your memory. This version is done letting familiarity disguise itself as loyalty. This version isn't here to play emotional hostage for people who would celebrate your collapse if it meant they could feel taller for a moment. And the part of you that's rising now, the part that finally sees behind the curtain, knows exactly what to do the moment truth fully reaches your ears. Because hesitation evaporates when clarity hits. And once you see someone's real intentions, access becomes a privilege you don't hand out lightly anymore. And it's wild how your spirit starts reacting before your mind has the full explanation. Like you'll feel this heaviness around certain people and you can't even articulate why. You'll feel drained after a 5-minute conversation that should have been harmless. You'll feel your mood shift the second their name pops up on your phone. And that's not random. That's not you being dramatic. That's not you having an off day. That's your intuition trying to tap you on the shoulder saying, "Hey, pay attention. Something here isn't matching your frequency anymore." It's like your progress irritates something inside them. Your healing disrupts their comfort. Your clarity ruins their advantage. And that's why they start talking. Not because you did something wrong, but because you did something right. You stopped being predictable. You stopped being controllable. You stopped being the version of you that tolerated the bare minimum. And the moment they felt that shift, they started whispering. They started venting. They started exaggerating your flaws to people who never even met you. They started playing the victim in stories where they were the villain. If you heard those conversations, if you read those messages, if you saw the masks they wear, you wouldn't hesitate for even half a second. Your thumb would hit that block button with the precision of muscle memory. No debate, no emotional spiral, no guilt, just clean removal of contaminated access. And the strength you'd feel after that quiet sense of self, that sudden burst of clarity, that inner calm that almost makes you laugh. That's when it hits you that blocking isn't disrespect, it's hygiene. Your mind deserves disinfecting. Your soul deserves boundaries. Your energy deserves protection. Your peace deserves priority. And you can feel that truth rising inside you already. Like a tide you can't stop. Like a part of you that's been asleep for years finally opening its eyes. Realizing you've been carrying people who would have dropped you the second you were no longer convenient. realizing your loyalty was too sacred to be wasted on people who speak highly of you in public and mock you in private. Realizing that your heart wasn't naive, it was targeted, and the shift happening in you right now is the kind that doesn't reverse, doesn't soften, doesn't shrink back into old patterns just because someone suddenly acts nicer, doesn't forget the feeling of recognizing who was secretly rooting for your downfall, doesn't ignore the internal warning signs you've silenced for years, doesn't fall for recycled apologies from people who never change. And this version of you, the one waking up, the one breathing deeper, the one realizing their own worth in real time, this version isn't going back to letting people stay in your life just because they've been there long enough to grow roots in your memory. This version is done letting familiarity disguise itself as loyalty. This version isn't here to play emotional hostage for people who would celebrate your collapse if it meant they could feel taller for a moment. And the part of you that's rising now, the part that finally sees behind the curtain, knows exactly what to do the moment truth fully reaches your ears, because hesitation evaporates when clarity hits. And once you see someone's real intentions, access becomes a privilege you don't hand out lightly anymore. And it's wild how your spirit starts reacting before your mind has the full explanation. Like you'll feel this heaviness around certain people and you can't even articulate why. You'll feel drained after a 5-minute conversation that should have been harmless. You'll feel your mood shift the second their name pops up on your phone. And that's not random. That's not you being dramatic. That's not you having an off day. That's your intuition trying to tap you on the shoulder, saying, "Hey, pay attention. Something here isn't matching your frequency anymore." And what's even crazier is how the people who talk about you the most are usually the ones acting the friendliest when they see you in person, like the performance is Oscar level, the smile, the fake warmth, the "hey stranger" energy. But under all that is this tension, this guilt, this low-key fear that you might find out what they really said, because the truth always makes cowards nervous around the person they betrayed. It's like they're terrified you might have receipts, terrified someone slipped and told you, terrified the mask they stitched together is about to fall apart, and you can feel that nervous energy vibrating off them. Like static on your skin. Your soul picks up on things your ears haven't heard yet. And once you start tuning into that frequency, it hits you that half the battles you've been fighting weren't even yours to begin with. They were projections, insecurities, jealousies, stories people made up about you to justify the way they mistreated you. It's wild how someone can hurt you and then create a whole narrative where you're the villain just so they don't have to feel guilty. It's wild how someone can envy your courage while still calling you too much. It's wild how someone can admire your strength while still hoping you break. And the moment you catch even a glimpse of the truth, everything in you shifts. Your chest feels lighter, your mind gets sharper, your silence becomes intentional, your presence gets selective. You stop telling people your plans. You stop inviting the wrong souls into your peace. You stop overgiving to prove you're worthy of basic respect. You stop bending your boundaries until they snap. And it's not petty. It's alignment. It's emotional self-defense. It's choosing yourself without apologizing for it. There's this version of you emerging from under the rubble of old expectations. And, it's kinda beautiful, watching you turn into someone who doesn't beg to be understood, someone who doesn't panic at the thought of losing people, Someone who isn't scared to say, "This doesn't feel right," and actually mean it. Someone who trusts their discomfort more than someone else's excuses. And people feel that transformation coming before you even fully step into it. Like they sense the emotional exit door swinging open, and suddenly the ones who talked the worst about you start showing you the most attention, the most flattery, the most sudden, "I miss you" energy. Not because they value you, because they feel you slipping out of the role they benefited from. You ever notice how quickly fake people become confused when you stop entertaining their chaos? You ever notice how people who gossip about you suddenly want to check in when your energy goes quiet? You ever notice how people who laughed at your pain suddenly want updates when your life starts getting better? It's because your growth exposes their intentions. Your silence exposes their noise. Your boundaries expose their entitlement. Your healing exposes their wounds. And if you actually knew what some of them whispered about you, the tone they used, the jokes they made, the sentences they crafted, the exaggerations they ran with, the bitterness dripping from every word, your heart wouldn't hesitate for even a breath. Hey, yeah, you, do me a favor and just sit with me for a minute, all right? Because, there's something you need to hear, something you've been walking around completely unaware of while everyone else has been freaking out behind your back. You don't realize what you triggered, but they do, and it terrifies them. You've been moving through life thinking you're just reacting, just surviving, just trying to get through the day. Meanwhile, the people who once underestimated you are watching every tiny shift in your energy, like it's some kind of warning sign from the universe. You changed, and you didn't even notice it. But they did, and they felt it in a way that made their stomach twist. Your silence started hitting different. Your presence started feeling heavier. Your aura started carrying something sharper, something colder, something real. People who were once comfortable around you aren't comfortable anymore. People who once talked over you suddenly measure their words. People who once played with you now triple-check their tone. Not because you threatened them, not because you raised your voice, but because that old version of you, the one that tolerated things, swallowed disrespect, laughed off pain, is gone. And they don't know where that version went. You don't realize it, but you triggered their fear response, their guilt, their self-awareness, their panic that you finally see them exactly as they are. It's wild how you're out here thinking, I'm just tired, while they're out here thinking, oh God, they figured me out. You think you're being quiet. They think you're plotting. You think you're healing. They think you're becoming unstoppable. You think you're emotionally done. They think you're about to rewrite your entire life without them in it. People feel the shift before you admit the shift. They felt when you stopped explaining yourself. They felt when you stopped craving validation. They felt when you stopped ignoring red flags. They felt when you stopped absorbing everyone's problems. They felt when you stopped apologizing for existing. And the second those things stopped, your value skyrocketed in the room. Your power became obvious. Your growth became threatening. You didn't change your clothes, your car, your job. You changed your energy. That's the most dangerous kind of evolution. You ever notice how the ones who used to drain you suddenly look uncomfortable? Like they're waiting for you to confront them about something they hoped you'd never realize. They're scared of what you're capable of now that you're not emotionally chained to them. Your detachment, terrifying. Your self-respect, intimidating. Your silence, deafening. Your boundaries, unpredictable. People fear what they cannot control. People fear what they cannot read. People fear what they cannot manipulate. People fear the moment you stop needing them. And that is exactly what you triggered. The moment you stopped chasing. The moment you stopped overthinking. The moment you stopped explaining your worth to people who had no business defining it. You became someone they can't manage anymore. Someone they can't use anymore. Someone they can't gaslight anymore. Someone they can't emotionally handcuff anymore. The version of you they depended on? Gone. And that scares them more than anything. You walk into a room differently now. People feel it. You don't rush your words anymore. You don't laugh at things that aren't funny. You don't shrink yourself to make other people comfortable. You don't jump to say yes when you mean absolutely not. Your confidence is quiet and unnerving. Your clarity is piercing. Your aura is untouchable. You don't even realize what you're radiating while you're walking around thinking you're just trying to keep it together. But they do. They're hyper-aware of every bit of strength you've stepped into recently. They see the fire you didn't realize you lit. They see the boundaries you didn't realize you set. They see the growth you didn't realize was showing. They see the independence you didn't realize you built. They see the transformation you didn't realize was blooming. And every piece of that terrifies them. Because when a person who once doubted themselves suddenly starts believing in themselves, the balance of power shifts. When someone who used to break easily starts walking like nothing can crack them, the game changes. When someone who used to idolize people starts prioritizing themselves, the whole dynamic flips. When someone who used to be emotionally available becomes emotionally selective, access becomes a privilege. You don't realize it because you've been inside the process, but they do because they've been watching from the outside. They're noticing you don't flinch like you used to. You don't second-guess yourself like before. You don't ask permission to be yourself. You don't fear losing people anymore. And that terrifies them, because if you're not scared to lose people, they can't use fear to control you. Your evolution is the one thing they never prepared for. Your clarity is the one thing they hoped you'd never develop. Your strength is the one thing they prayed would stay buried. But here you are, walking around with a different energy, a different heart, a different mind, a different level of self-respect. And you still don't realize the impact. You still don't see what they see. You still don't grasp what you awakened in yourself. But they do, and it terrifies them. And it's kind of wild how you're walking around thinking nothing major shifted, while people around you are practically holding their breath every time you enter the room. They don't even know how to stand next to you anymore. They're studying your posture, the way you answer, the way you look at things, the way you don't react to things you once exploded over. They're noticing you don't chase clarity from people who only ever gave you confusion. You're giving this energy like, if you wanted to lose me, you should have said that. And it's throwing them off in ways you're not picking up on. It's that calm you've got now. That slow, steady, unbothered calm that I've seen too much to be shaken by this calm. People don't know how to interpret it. They don't know if you're done with them. They don't know if you're testing them. They don't know if you know something they don't. And the truth is, you kind of do. You see through people faster. The masks don't work on you anymore. The lies don't land the same. The manipulation doesn't even stick. And, that's what scares them. Not that you changed, but that you're no longer blind to the things you used to ignore. You ever notice how someone gets extra nice when they think you might expose them? Extra patient, extra careful? That's not growth. That's fear, disguised as maturity. They're scared of losing the version of you they used to feed off. They're scared of losing the access they never earned. They're scared of losing the loyalty you used to give out, like charity. You stopped being predictable. You stopped being available on demand. You stopped being the emotional crutch. You stopped being the person they could drain and still expect you to smile about it. And the second you stopped, they started panicking. They don't say it out loud, but you can feel the shift. That awkwardness when they talk to you now, that hesitation before they joke, that double take when you don't respond the way you used to, that stiffness in their voice when they realize they can't guilt trip you anymore, that sudden silence when you don't react to their passive-aggressive nonsense. They're terrified because nothing about you is giving easy target anymore. Nothing about you is giving emotionally open buffet. Nothing about you is giving, please walk all over me. You're moving like someone who finally understands their own value. And when you understand your value, you stop entertaining discount energy. And they feel that loss. They feel that shift. They feel that distance. They feel that version of you slipping out of their hands. You don't realize what you triggered when you chose yourself for once. But they do. And it terrifies them because it means they no longer get to decide how your story unfolds. Your glow is different now. Not loud, not flashy, but steady, grounded, effortless. That kind of glow can't be faked. It comes from surviving storms you never spoke about, from rebuilding yourself piece by piece, from walking through fire alone and coming out with your own light. People sense that. People fear that. People react to that even if they pretend they don't. Your strength isn't loud, but it's unmistakable. Your confidence isn't aggressive, but it's unshakable. Your silence isn't passive, but intentional. And intentional silence is one of the most intimidating things a person can encounter, because it forces them to confront themselves in the space where your old explanations used to be. That's the part they can't handle. Not your power, but the fact that you're no longer hiding it to make others comfortable. Not your strength, but the fact that you're no longer diluting it. Not your clarity, but the fact that you finally trust it. You don't realize how far you've come, how much you've changed, how deeply you've evolved. But they do, and it terrifies them. And the thing that really gets them, the part that hits them in the chest every time they think about you, is how you're not even trying to prove anything anymore. You're not performing, you're not competing, you're not chasing the approval you once thought you needed to survive. You're just existing in your truth. And that truth is heavier than any threat you could ever say out loud. They feel it in the way you walk now. That slow, steady, grounded walk that doesn't apologize for taking up space. They feel it in how your eyes don't dart around nervously like they used to. You look straight at things now. You see through people like glass. They feel it in your posture. Shoulders relaxed, jaw unclenched, that quiet confidence leaking out of you like a warning sign. They don't know what version of you they're dealing with anymore. That uncertainty alone is enough to make them rethink every interaction. It's like you became this mirror they can't avoid, a mirror that reflects back all the ways they mishandled you, underestimated you, misunderstood you. And the crazy part is, you're not intentionally holding that mirror up. It's just who you are now, Growth has a way of turning into a spotlight without you even meaning to shine it. People who once dismissed you are studying you now. People who once doubted you are cautious around you. People who once talked over you suddenly feel the need to choose their words carefully. They're sensing that you've outgrown the emotional cages they built for you. They're sensing that your mind is sharper. They're sensing that your patience isn't unlimited anymore. They're sensing that your heart isn't naive anymore. You ever see how someone tries to joke with you the old way, and the joke just dies in their throat because your reaction doesn't match their expectation? That silence you give them, that stillness, that unreadable expression, yeah, that's the new you, reminding them the old door has closed and they don't have a key to the new one. And they hate how calm you are. Your calm is dangerous. Your calm is loud. Your calm is the kind of calm people get when they know they won't be manipulated again. It's not the loud transformations that scare people. It's the quiet ones, the internal ones, the ones you don't post online, the ones you don't announce, the ones that happen behind closed doors while you're rebuilding yourself silently. You're walking around with a different kind of self-awareness now. A different kind of wisdom, a different kind of emotional discipline. And emotional discipline? That's rare. That's powerful. That's threatening to people who counted on your emotional impulsiveness to keep you predictable. They don't know if you're distant or just finally at peace. They don't know if you're guarded or just protecting your energy. They don't know if you're done with them or just done explaining yourself. And that question mark hanging over their head, that's what terrifies them. Because once someone realizes their worth, you can't guilt them back into a place they outgrew. Once someone sees the truth, you can't convince them to unsee it. Once someone heals, you can't break them the same way again. And the version of you that's here now, that version carries a kind of power you don't fully understand yet, but they feel it every time you say less, every time you stay calm, every time you choose yourself, every time you refuse to be dragged into old chaos. You're not reacting emotionally anymore. You're responding logically. You're observing instead of absorbing. You're choosing solitude over fake connections. You're moving like someone who knows exactly what they bring to the table. And people know what that means. Even before you do, they know what you're becoming. Even before you name it, they know what you triggered. Even before you accept it, you don't realize the force you're stepping into. But they do, and it terrifies them. And what's really messing with them is how you've been carrying yourself lately. This quiet, almost eerie confidence that wasn't there before. You're not bragging, you're not flexing, you're not trying to prove anything. You're just moving with this energy like you finally realized you don't have to fight for space anymore. You are the space now. And, people feel that. People react to that. People panic because of that. They used to know exactly which buttons to push with you. They had the emotional cheat codes. They knew what would trigger you, what would guilt you, what would shut you down. But those buttons don't work anymore. The wiring's different. You upgraded yourself without announcing the update, and they can't stand that loss of control. It's like they're trying to have the same old conversations with you, but the script changed, and you didn't tell anyone. You're giving short answers now. You're not oversharing. You're not filling awkward silences. You're not feeding their egos with unnecessary reassurance. You're not explaining your boundaries. You're just enforcing them. Your detachment isn't cold. It's powerful. Your distance isn't selfish, it's protective. Your silence isn't empty, it's intentional. And the intentional version of you. Yeah, that's the version they never expected to meet. You ever notice how people stare at you a little longer these days, like they're searching for the old version of you in your eyes? They're scanning, trying to see if you still have the same fears, the same insecurities, the same soft spots they used to exploit. But your eyes don't give that away anymore. There's a steadiness there, a maturity, a knowing. It's unsettling to them because they relied on your vulnerability to stay comfortable. It's almost funny watching them try to adjust. They're more cautious now, more polite, more careful with their wording. Even their jokes feel toned down, like they're testing the water before diving back into their old behavior. But they can't dive back in because the water's not the same. You're not the same. You stopped giving them the emotional version of you they were addicted to. You stopped feeding them validation. You stopped accepting crumbs. You stopped bending your boundaries every time someone looked disappointed. And the moment you stopped, their fear started. They don't know what you think of them anymore. They don't know if you're done or just observing. They don't know if you've forgiven them or if you're just too evolved to waste energy being angry. They don't know how much you figured out. They don't know what conversations you replayed and finally understood. They don't know what truths you connected in silence. And, uncertainty is the one thing that terrifies people who used to depend on your predictability. Your energy used to be soft enough for people to walk all over. But now it's firm enough to make them walk around carefully. That shift shakes people. It forces them to look at their behavior without the cushion of your old acceptance. You became someone they can't manipulate, can't guilt, can't distract, can't emotionally corner. They can't read you, they can't predict you, they can't decide your mood, they can't pull you into negativity. You're steady in a way that exposes their chaos. You're grounded in a way that exposes their insecurities. You're aware in a way that exposes their patterns. And every time you show this new level of control, even in the smallest ways, they feel it like a shock to the system. Even your, yeah, hits different now. Even your quiet hits different. Even your presence hits different. You don't realize the psychological pressure you exert just by existing in this upgraded version of yourself, but they do. And it terrifies them. And the part that keeps throwing them off is how unpredictable your peace has become. You're calm in moments where the old you would have spiraled. You're collected in situations where you used to break down. You're steady in ways that don't even make sense to the people who watched you struggle before. It's like you rebuilt yourself in a way they never imagined you could. And, they're stuck trying to figure out when that happened. They're confused because you used to be emotionally accessible, easy to tap into, easy to provoke, easy to pull into their chaos. But this new version of you doesn't open the door just because someone knocks. You're choosing who gets access instead of letting everyone walk in. And that shift? That's the kind of shift that scares people who depended on your openness to control the relationship. You ever watch someone get nervous just because you're quiet? Like they can't handle the silence coming from you anymore. That's because your silence isn't passive now. It's powerful. It's like they're wondering what you know, what you noticed, what you picked up on in those moments you stopped responding emotionally. Your quiet feels like intelligence. Your distance feels like insight. Your stillness feels like strategy. And people fear strategy more than anger. The old you would have reacted instantly, tried to defend yourself, Tried to explain, tried to justify, but you don't explain anything anymore. You don't fight to be understood. You don't chase closure from people who wouldn't even give you honesty. And that emotional maturity hits them harder than any argument ever could. It's the way you don't feed their ego anymore. The way you don't rise to their bait. The way you don't get dragged into their chaos. The way you don't let pressure push you into mistakes. You're grounded now. And grounded people are dangerous to those who thrive off instability. They're scared because they can't tell what you're thinking. You don't give them easy access to your emotions. You don't show your hand. You don't over-explain your boundaries. You don't drop your guard out of loneliness anymore. And losing that emotional leverage, that's what terrifies them the most. You ever notice how they're suddenly over-explaining themselves to you? Or being weirdly polite? Or giving you compliments out of nowhere? That's not appreciation. That's panic. Panic that they misplayed their hand with someone who isn't as breakable as they assumed. Panic that you see them clearly now.